G'day, my name's Cannon and welcome back to NerdCulture Australia. I watched Superman 2025. The long journey through all the Superman films has finally come to its conclusion. I went and saw the new Superman film, and it was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I had some misgivings about this initially, given some of the stuff that I had read about it and what people were already saying for those that had seen early screenings as well as international audiences. But I put myself on a media blackout for Superman a week prior, went in with an open mind, and it turns out that was the correct choice. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a blanket endorsement for the film. Overall, it was a good effort, but there were some parts in this that I thoroughly disliked. Disliked both from a... just didn't like the addition of the thing, and also, why would they twist it like that viewpoint? As well as some other stuff. Now, I saw this 2 days after release at a smaller cinema, so I didn't really have a look around and see how many people were in there, so we can't read into that too much as to the film's popularity. I don't know numbers, I haven't looked at numbers, so we're just going to do this from what I saw. Now, I tried to write out the story. I've ended up with 2 pages worth of for memory, so I'm going to ignore what I wrote, and we are going to just jump straight into it. It opens up with text. The text basically describes the last 30 years while honing in onto the very moment where David Corenswet not flies, but crash lands into the screen as Superman. He's just had the crap kicked out of him by a villain known as the Hammer of Baravia. Okay, I lied. I am using my notes, just because names.
This guy hasn't seen his brother in 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
So the fight between the Hammer of Baravia and Superman is as a result of Superman intervening or inserting himself into an international conflict between said country and its neighbor. He's basically fled to the Fortress of Solitude to heal, where he is assisted by his robots, and that is also our introduction to Crypto the Super Dog. He gets healed, leaves to return to Metropolis to continue his fight. As he does that, his Fortress of Solitude is spotted by a character known as the Engineer, who contacts whoever. She calls someone and says, "Hey, do you want me to gain entry?" While this happens, Superman is again getting the absolute snot beaten out of him. It is then revealed to the audience that the Hammer is actually being controlled by Lex Luthor. Right, so Superman gets knocked out of the sky, the Hammer leaves. Lex is also the person that the Engineer has been on a call with. He tells her not to worry about gaining access to the Fortress of Solitude because he has ways of dealing with that, and tells her to come back. We cut to the Daily Planet, where we meet Lois, Jimmy Perry White, and the rest of the Planet team. Clark arrives, not Superman, Clark Kent. Lois gives him grief about his self-interviews. Obviously, he doesn't phrase it like that because that would out him to the rest of the team. We also see Luthor having meetings with various government officials, telling them about Superman's secret fortress, his misgivings as to what Superman is really on Earth for. We see some familiar faces. The character General Rick Flag now is played by Frank Grillo of MCU fame, as well as he's done a few other things. It was like a Loop movie that I really enjoyed him in. Anyway, other movies aside, Luthor has created his own metahuman team called Peace Force. He wants to use them on Superman. Government officials are not persuaded. Right. We then cut to Lois arriving at her apartment. She finds Clark making breakfast for dinner with the statement that it is her favorite meal. She responds with, "Nope, that's your favorite meal." Anyway, we get an insight into their relationship. It's still quite young. There's obviously some flirting and some smooching. She gives him more grief about his self-interviews between his personas. He offers to give her one, an interview with Superman. It does not go so well. Lois, obviously being the crack reporter that she is, Clark has some difficulty expressing himself, gets frustrated, and after some excuses made for their behavior during the interview, Clark leaves. While this goes on, Lex invades the Fortress of Solitude, taking out the robots and Crypto. He is asked whether or not Superman would stop them. Lex has responded with, he'll be distracted. The distraction is a alien creature of unknown origin released into Metropolis by some LexCorp employees. We cut to the next day, where Superman is now not necessarily fighting the alien beast, but trying to minimize the damage to people and property. We see him fly around, stopping it from stepping on people, as well as a dog. We get to see the use of his ice breath. He uses that to push a dog out of harm's way. He tries to stop it from falling into buildings, generally just moving around, trying to minimize damage, trying to figure out how to deal with not necessarily the threat, but this alien creature that clearly has no idea where it is or what's going on. Enter stage right, the Justice Gang, name pending. As a recurring joke, it is Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl, all played by rather well-known actors. They join Superman in his attempts to restrain the alien, but end up killing it instead. Superman obviously expressing his disappointment with them. At the culmination of this fight, when Superman is talking with Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific, he notices that there is a news broadcast going on. It's Lex Luthor. He has obviously invaded Superman's Fortress of Solitude and taken a message from Superman's parents. We had been told earlier in the film that the message had two halves to it. The first half survived the transit from Krypton to Earth, but the second half was corrupted and Superman does not know what it says. Lex has supposedly managed to recover and decrypt the second half of the message. And basically it says that Superman's been sent to Earth to do some pretty nefarious stuff. Basically conquer Earth and enslave humanity, as well as basically queue it up for Superman's descendants to rule Earth with an iron metahuman fist. The crowd turns on Superman on an instant. Superman leaves the scene with the help of the Justice Gang, and the government capitulates, giving Lex Luthor the authority to use his Peace Force to detain Superman and, imprison him. Right? So this is what happens. Lex imprisons him in an interdimensional space that he has created to basically use as a money-making enterprise, imprisoning other metahumans, people of distinction that foreign countries don't necessarily approve of, like political prisoners, criminals even, as well as some of Lex's ex-girlfriends. Superman is imprisoned with a metahuman called Metamorpho, who, for those of you who don't know, can basically shift his body into any element known and unknown. Metamorpho shifts his hand into kryptonite. Right? This is just, yeah. For those of you who aren't aware, kryptonite is Superman's kryptonite. It's where the term comes from. It slowly poisons Superman. Lex questions Superman, even going as far as pulling a falafel cart salesman from the streets of Metropolis and killing him in front of Superman, purely because he sold him falafel once. This obviously leaves Superman rather distraught, and Lex leaves promising to find more people and bringing them in front of Superman and doing basically the same thing. Lois, we cut to her visiting the Justice Gang's headquarters under construction. She requests their help in finding Superman because she figures that something's not quite right, as they do. The Justice Gang refuses. Lois storms out until Mr. Terrific comes out and goes, yeah, I'll help. Not because, for any moral reason, but mostly because it annoys Guy Gardner. Right, they find the military base where Superman was taken. Mr. Terrific fights with Lex's goons, and they break into the interdimensional space, with Mr. Terrific turning his nose up at LexCorp's hackney science, basically. He disapproves of the methods that they've used to open the portals, and foreshadowingly claims that if done wrong, it will basically open a rift that will probably tear the world in half. Because that's what they do. Inside the interdimensional prison, Metamorpho has a change of heart. Now, the reason why Lex Luthor was able to control Metamorpho was because Lex had Metamorpho's son. Infant son, I might add. That bit target my heartstrings a bit. But Metamorpho has a change of heart. Basically morphs his hand back into a hand, pulls a son out of his pocket, and helps Superman gain a little bit of power so that they rescue his son. There's an escape sequence. They fight some more of Lex's goons inside a river of some description. It's not important. They fight. Crypto helps. They then are discovered by Mr. Terrific, and they all escape. Right? Then Superman goes after Lex, who fights Superman with his own goon, Ultraman. While this fight is happening, the portal fails. Surprise. And a rift appears. Who could have known? This is a very long story. Superman and Ultraman are obviously busy kicking the crap out of each other. Mr. Terrific says that he needs help. The fight continues. At one point, it is revealed that Ultraman is a Superman clone. Superman wins, obviously. Then goes to confront Lex Luthor. There are speeches made. Mr. Terrific is terrific. Closes the rift. The day is saved. And the film ends with Superman smooching Lois. There is a post-credit scene, surprising no one, where we get to see that Krypto is not Superman's dog. He's dog-sitting for his cousin Kara. Then the film ends. Whew. That was a lot to get through. Let's get stuck into the characters. David Corenswet makes a really good Superman. I believe... Oh my goodness. Where are we at? Where character names? I need actresses and actors. Rachel Brosnahan also makes a great Lois. There has been some speculation that they used Rachel Brosnahan because she looks like a younger version of the Lois from the Christopher Reeves films. Some of the other faces within the Daily Planet team look familiar. The super robots are voiced by Alan Tudyk and a few others. And Nicholas Hoult nails it as Lex Luthor. He is quite possibly the most evil Lex that we've seen to date. So we had the Lex Luthor from the Christopher Reeves was kind of comic book villainy. Superman is definitely going to get in my way, but I'm kind of just really in it to, do my own thing, make money, and hang out with my hot girlfriend. The Lex Luthor portrayed by Kevin Spacey in the Brandon Routh film was darker. It was the first time that we'd actually seen Superman bleed from kryptonite. But this iteration of Lex Luthor, portrayed by Nicholas Hoult, was quite possibly the most evil one we've seen to date. Political prisoners, dealing with foreign powers, to basically like do land grabs, that kind of thing, as well as just straight up torture and murder. Like this, dark, evil, not necessarily like brainy villain, more egotistical jealousy, I think would be a better way of describing this one. But either way, the portrayal of Lex Luthor was fascinating. Like, that was just nuts. I enjoyed the cameos from Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl. I'm not entirely certain why they had Hawkgirl screaming all the time. I know she does eagle, like, cry out while she flies in various cut animations that I've seen. Guy Gardner is as obtuse and rude as I've ever seen him in the various medias that I've watched and read. Possibly a little bit too rude. And Mr. Terrific is terrific. What more can I say about that guy? He's terrific. It's in the name, you know? But other than that, the cast did a great job with their characters. The music, I mentioned this in my Man of Steel review. I much prefer orchestral cinematic music than rock music pertaining to events and characters. I find the orchestral vibe more creative than just wholesale ripping music from elsewhere to give the right kind of vibe to the scene or anything that you want. Don't get me wrong, it was fine for what it was. It's just personal preference. Cinematography was good. I enjoyed it. It did a good job of portraying the S on Superman's chest a fair bit. You get to see him fly around. You get to see him punch stuff. I'm not going to comment on the CGI because I know nothing about it. But I thought it was pretty good overall. Right, so now we're going to get into the stuff that bugged me. I didn't like the costume. It was, again, personal preference. I like Brandon Routh's costume the best out of all of them. Out of all the Supermen that I've seen over the last month, Brandon Routh still tops it for me. Don't get me wrong, this one was fine. It definitely epitomizes the whole big blue vibe that you hear about in cartoons and comics. It didn't do it. I would say that David Corenswet's and Christopher Reeve's Superman suits tie for third place, followed by Man of Steel with Brandon Routh at the top. But again, that's all down to personal preference, so feel free to argue about that in the comments. I didn't like the robots. I thought that the attempt at injected humor was very misplaced. I know that that's James Gunn's style. If you've seen his other films that he's done with Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad, that's kind of the way that he does his films. Putting attempted comedy in film does not make up for a lack of writing ability. Like, the story was fine for the most part, but there definitely could have been some improvements to it for sure. I didn't like the robots. The dog was also honestly a waste of film. You could take Krypto out and lose nothing from the story. I liked the interaction between Superman and the other metahumans, but again, you could have just had it primarily focus on Superman and Lex without them, and it would have been fine. The other thing that I didn't like was the way that they twisted Superman's parents' message. This is not a reversal, but a complete undoing of the message that Superman's parents sent with him. That has been the same message pretty much for the last 87 years, right? The last 87 years of Superman live-action films, where Superman's parents sent him to Earth for basically, Krypton's doomed, we're sending you to Earth to have a better life than we could ever hope for you. Inspire them, be a symbol of hope, protect them, lead them. This is become a symbol of terror, conquer them, terrorize them, lord over them, which leaves a very foul taste in one's mouth. I did not like that. That was honestly just a complete and utter betrayal of Jor-El and Lara's message. I also don't think Bradley Cooper was very convincing as Jor-El either. He lacks the gravitas of Marlon Brando and Russell Crowe in those roles. Not a good cast, sorry. So, yeah. And then, to wrap it up, it's, by and large, a good Superman film. I'll do a ranking of all of them in another video, but I would say that if you went and saw this in a cinema, you're not wasting your money. I probably wouldn't buy popcorn for it, but it's, turn your brain off for a couple hours. Enjoy a superhero film for once. It is not as bad as people make it out to be. It's not the best Superman film, but it's not bad. Now, if we want to talk about some of the other stuff that's gone in there, I will make another video, because obviously there is more to talk about for this film. But for now, it's a good Superman film for what it is worth. If you like what you heard or watched, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.